great outcome for an end product. So I have a questionnaire that I'm actually going to hand out a little bit later, and I'm doing that intentionally because I would like to kind of have you listening more to me and looking at the slides, and you'll have ample time to go through the questions. We're going to actually see them twice in the presentation because we definitely need to get feedback on some very specific items. But I want to start out by just kind of framing the project and get you thinking about what we're trying to accomplish and achieve. So the project that I'm here to talk about is called the Hospital Family Lounge Project. And we have a handful of objectives. So what we're looking to do is replace the furniture that exists in our hospital family lounges. We're also being tasked with repairing and replacing flooring or wall coverings that are considered in poor condition within those lounges. And lastly, I've been tasked with developing a multi-year plan to kind of update all of those lounges and find a way to maintain that on an ongoing methodical process moving forward. So the asset that we're talking about, the number of lounges that we have in our hospitals are actually a total of 70 rooms, and it totals about 34,000 square feet. So it's a lot of space, and you kind of lose sight of the order of magnitude of what we're trying to manage. So I'd like to frame what I'm considering as a hospital family lounge as part of this project. So hospital family lounges, I'm going to tell you what they're not. So they're not the main building lobbies, kind of where people come when they first check in at admissions. This is not what we're talking about today. We're focusing on kind of small and mid-sized rooms that are really embedded within or immediately adjacent to our inpatient care units in the hospital. So I've got a couple of examples of floor plans showing where we have some of these lounges so you can kind of get your bearings on what we're talking about. So this is the Domitilla building, and as you can see highlighted in blue, we have about 3 family lounges per floor, and they're there to support families who happen to have a loved one in that unit at the time. Another example, this is the Mary Bry building. It happens to be our largest building on the St. Mary's Hospital campus. So therefore, it generally speaking would have the largest number of family lounges. And you can kind of see how they're scattered throughout the different towers of the building. So as we, in my position, I guess, have to balance all of Mayo's resources, and those can include everything from time to financial allocations that are available to do any particular project. We had to define a very specific scope of work to accomplish or try to achieve in the year 2016. So we had to pare our scope down to just the St. Mary's Hospital campus for this year. So we're looking at a total of 60 rooms and about 30,000 square feet. And so very specific to what we need to achieve in this project is that we need to go out and evaluate the condition of all those interior elements within the family lounges. We'll look at, as part of kind of a subcategory to that, we'll look at installing new furniture, again repairing and replacing wall coverings that might be damaged, doing the same with any flooring that might be failing. And then the last bullet item under that first topic is probably the most exciting. So we are also looking at conducting a complete interior upgrade of about 10% of the rooms. So I had mentioned that we kind of have to create these projects in manageable sized initiatives. So for the year 2016, we're taking about 10% of the rooms, and we're going to be allowed to look at doing kind of a less modest or kind of a nicer upgrade to the space. And so part of the task that I need to accomplish is prioritizing the condition of all these spaces and trying to figure out which ones probably need to be upgraded this year. Moving forward into the future, we'll hit the rest of those 90%, but based on some of the constraints we have, we need to take it forward in an iterative way. So what I'm hoping to glean from your group is, as we look at this as a multi-year plan, yes, we're only doing a small number of rooms today, but it will encompass all of these hospital family lounges over time. So what can you share with me about what might I not know is missing in these rooms that patient families feel is necessary? Or how might we better prioritize them? You may feel like there are things that are a higher priority than I, from a facilities perspective, think is a high priority. So I'm looking forward to getting some of that feedback. And the last two bullet items are items I know will come up tonight, so I'm preemptively talking about them. So it's also my goal to collaborate and coordinate with two other initiatives that are underway. And one of those is patient electronic device charging stations, and the other is television upgrades in the hospitals. Both of those elements need to be in the patient family lounges, so we need to work hand in glove to make sure the work that's being done on those projects is really being done in conjunction with what this project is doing. So I'm going to go through the kind of high-level questions that I would like to talk about, but this is a quick snapshot view of the questions. Then we're going to look at some pictures of the lounges, because I kind of want you thinking about the questions, and then let's look at some examples of lounges, and then let's come back to the questions and really start talking about them in detail. So generally speaking, one of the things we'd like to find out is what feel or reaction should the hospital family lounges invoke in people when they come to the space? What purpose do you use hospital family lounges for? And there are a lot of subcategories here which we will get into a little bit later. Kind of what's the primary function or use of them? Does the furniture that exists within the hospital family lounges meet the needs of families and visitors? Do the amenities within hospital family lounges meet the needs of our visitors and families? And lastly, what suggestions do you have to better meet the needs of visitors and families within Mayo Clinic hospital family lounges? So as we kind of think about those questions, I also want to bombard you with information. No, I really want to kind of give you some key points. What kind of amenities do we have in these family lounges, generally speaking? And it's hard to generalize because every area has something slightly different, and it's slightly different perhaps based on the area in which it was built or the area in which it's adjacent to. Different medical practices may have different needs for their families who are visiting loved ones in the hospital. So we have furniture, we have seating, we have tables. The seating varies from chairs, sofas, recliners. We have, when we look at the table structure, we have end tables or side tables that house lamps, things you can set magazines or personal items on. We also have what I would call more community tables, tables where a family can sit and talk, discuss, or where we can have family members playing a game or putting puzzles together. Looking at kind of the decorative elements within the rooms. Generally speaking, we have art. Some rooms have plants, kind of spruce up the ambiance a little bit. We have lights, clocks, a handful of different things in different rooms. We have brochure racks. We have communications boards. Sometimes they're electronic, sometimes they're bulletin boards, sometimes they're posters, and sometimes they're signs. We have reading materials, magazines, information brochures. We have games, puzzles, televisions. In some cases, we have kitchenettes that have things such as refrigerators, coffee makers, and in some rare cases, we do have vending within the rooms. Primarily, it's semi-adjacent to it, but I have seen a few examples where we do have vending in the space itself. We have amenities for visitors such as telephones, a desk to work at with a computer on it to potentially do research. And then the last one's kind of a oddball to throw in, but it's a thing, it takes up space. So we have things like trash receptacles and recycling receptacles in our spaces. So as we kind of think back at the questions about how do we use these rooms, what needs do they have to meet for our patients and families, and potentially what could we do better to meet the needs. I'd like to go through a few pictures and kind of let you kind of see what's out there and digest what we have going on. So this is the Domitilla second floor. It is actually one of the newer units on the St. Mary's Hospital campus. And looking at the picture on the left, you can see there's a kitchenette with a sink. You can see trash receptacles, kind of the silver items in the corner. They take up a fairly large footprint. Looking at the pictures on the right, you can see computer workstations and kind of different seating arrangements. There's definitely a variety of styles of chairs in this space. Looking at Domitilla's sixth floor. Again, we have on the left, you can kind of see that community table or a gaming table where people could sit and discuss or have an activity going on. Again, you see the pause workstations on the lower right. I think as we look at these pictures, one of the things that really comes to the surface for me is we do have space constraints, so we're always working within the spaces that we have, and boy, we do have a lot of stuff going on in these rooms, but that's good because I think our patients and visitors need that. But they're full. Mary Bry's sixth floor. If you look at the picture on the left, it's very dark, and actually the picture is intentional, but when I walked in the room it was dark. There are blankets draped over the chairs, and the lights are dimmed and the shades are drawn, and I think that's indicative of people are resting there. If you look at the pictures on the right, you'll see some different seating options. As far as amenities, I didn't put aquarium in my list, but there is an aquarium in this space, but it's something to pique interest, to add to the ambiance of the space. Again, Mary Bry 6, I had commented that Mary Bry, being our largest building, has the largest number of patient visitor lounges. So there's quite a number I'm showing you. In the upper left-hand corner is actually the very large kind of family waiting area that faces west over the main entrance. So these come in quite a variety of sizes and configurations. Again, upper right-hand corner, you'll see a television set. Case in point, need to collaborate with that project because you can see the old CRT monitor that's sitting there. Joseph's second floor. I think for anyone who's familiar with the Joseph building, there are some very nice, spacious family lounges that face north, and they have some very nice ornate woodwork, kind of original design to the building. So these are a little bit more spacious areas. The Francis building, this is a room that is probably a little bit older in nature. It's probably been there without a massive update for quite some time, but the lower right hand corner you can see kind of a kitchenette area. They kind of squeezed in where possible areas to have those amenities for visitors, and again a variety of different seating arrangements. So as we I could have probably showed you 1,000 pictures of these lounges, but I think we kind of covered all of the different things that are in the spaces. I would like to really kind of get into a discussion about some of these questions and get some feedback from you on what we need these rooms to achieve or accomplish, what we can do better. And I can walk around too. So I'm not set on following any specific order of the questions. I just have them in the PowerPoint. So if we kind of jump around, I'm completely fine with that. But I think what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about the construct or the layout of the surveys so you understand what I'm trying to get from you. Brian, do you need any more, or do you think we're good?
We're good.
Okay.
We're totally good.
Okay. So I'm just going to point out a couple items related to construct of the survey because it looks really wordy and I don't want it to be complex. But if we look at question 2, it's for what purpose do you use hospital family lounges? I've already created some ideas or thoughts based on what I see out there. Things like waiting, family gathering, respite, or sleep. And what I would really like to try to get from people is a scoring almost of how frequently would you use the room for that function, because there are so many things that need to happen and there are constraints. So I think prioritizing what the family lounges need to achieve or accomplish is pretty important. So I've got a numbering scheme laid out, but there's also a key that kind of explains. So for any one of these items, so let's just pick on waiting. Do you use a family lounge for waiting? If you never use it or would use it for waiting, I would circle the number 0. If you sometimes use it for waiting, I would circle 1. And if you frequently use it for waiting, I would circle 2. And if you always use it for waiting, or you think it should always be serving that function, I would circle 3. And I think this will help us prioritize. And I know it's a lot of detail, but I would love if you guys would be willing to circle a priority for every single one of those items. And I would be even more appreciative if you had ideas of things these lounges need to achieve that I didn't think of and that I don't have on here. So if you would put something in the other category or multiple things, I think that would be great. Yep. Yep, we will. Can I have like 1 more minute? Okay. I was trying to make it not confusing, but I can't get all the information I need and have it be extremely simple. So questions 3 and 4 kind of, does the furniture meet your needs? Do amenities meet the needs? It's a yes or no question, but I think that it warrants more than a yes or no answer, especially if the answer is no. So anything that you would like to put in here to elaborate, I think would be great, and we'll definitely discuss it as well. And then question 5, suggestions on what we could do better. For the survey, I tried to pre-select some categories. Is it something related to amenities like kitchenettes, coffee makers, refrigerators? Is it the look and the feel, or is it something I didn't think of? And just kind of elaborate on those things. And if you don't want to fill out the survey and we just want to talk about it, I'm happy with that, but I'm also happy if you guys want to fill out the surveys and think about them or hand them in at a later date. That would be great. So with that, if we want to start a dialogue, I am open. Yes.
Well, a few things. I haven't really used it, just to be upfront, I haven't really usually lounges, so I've done almost exclusively outpatient stuff in the Gonda building and down here. I haven't spent a little time in St. Mary's. But from looking at it and from just what I know around, I know, for example, that the Wi-Fi throughout Mayo Clinic is very poor, power reception, the ability to connect and disconnect. Very often, if you look up for a second, you're already off Wi-Fi. So that's one issue.
Okay.
Another issue is privacy. If you want to have a private conversation with somebody else in your family, it's very hard to do that. So you don't want to disturb the other people. So sometimes you're kind of constrained to be totally quiet and doing like that. And I just think that can be difficult sometimes when you have to talk about something.
Okay.
You don't always have to walk up and get out of the room to talk. So I think that maybe by having cubicles or something, you might, well, it seems like it's almost overly crowded, so I don't know how you exactly can do that, but I think there's a lack of privacy. Another issue is status. I know the ophthalmology group has discussed this a little bit, but status boards on patients. So is there some way of knowing by a number or some identifier what the status of the patient is while you're waiting, without having to go out and sort of constantly go back and forth, say to a particular desk, if there's some board like they have in some other departments, like gastroenterology, they show like what somebody's status is on say colonoscopy. But to have that in the rooms, like to know where the patient is, or something about the status of the patient might be useful. And then some basic stuff like clocks and writing. I noticed I didn't see clocks in a lot of the rooms. I don't know if they're there or not, but that might be useful. And also writing paper, just if you want to take a note, or if you're looking at something and you want to make a note of it to somebody, it's kind of hard to get scrap paper.
Okay, thank you. Those are all great points. I'm going to ask a question about the status boards. Do people feel that the status board is very specific to certain practices? As I'm thinking of the types of patients that are in different units, perhaps there are some units that are more likely to have families waiting for someone to come out of surgery rather than a family member who's in the unit and potentially has been there for quite some time and will potentially remain there for quite some time. Is there any thought on that?
Well, I mean, even for example, if somebody is normally in the room and they're taken out for, say, an MRI or radiology procedure, sometimes you don't always know that. So a status board could say patient in room or out. There's different ways, it depends on
Okay.
what, again, as you say, what the patient is there for, but I still think an update way of looking at it might be useful.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That could just be written on the board, maybe in the patient's room. So if you went into that room, you'd see that they were out, where they were, when they'd be back, rather than in a communal room where other people would see the
It
name.
depends, unless it's just a number, like patient number 3. But
Oh, I see.
It doesn't, you wouldn't have the name of the patient, but you could have just an identifier. Now, and there are certain situations where it may not be in the room, like as I said, the person's in for surgery or the person's out for procedure, when they're going to be back. I mean, there might be some way of putting some information that it doesn't violate confidentiality.
You would, along with the board and the status board, is maybe if there's something that needs the patient's privacy and families in the waiting room, or that same thing, how do you know when that procedure, whatever is being, is done, and they can go back in and view the patient again, or maybe if the family is just taking a break while the patient's sleeping, but they don't want to miss the doctor's surgery, rather than come in to provide an update, even if that can just kind of be on the board as well.
Yeah, so you can know when it's best to actually visit, like you usually.
I'm making notes, so bear with me. Okay, so I'm summarizing that as information board to help family members understand if the patient has left the room and they've gone somewhere, perhaps where they've gone and when they might be back, or that they are back. And then also, to your point, if you're in a position where something's occurring in the room and patient visitors aren't going to be allowed for a duration of time, to have some form of notification that that's happening.
Or if the person isn't for surgery or something, let somebody know, like, it's out, what that means in terms of what stage it's at.
I've waited many hours for rounds and like, when is rounding coming? And you just sit and it's so dynamic, it's interesting, but the surgery is a different animal, it's a little simpler. It's a great point, and I hear exactly where you're coming from.
Another thing has to do with privacy, like a common shared place where people can meet, like without being in the patient's room necessarily, to actually meet where you could have a confidential room. Like in the library, they have a quiet room where just a person and a group of people can just meet in a very small enclosed area just to talk.
Okay,
So that, and then the clock and the tape.
got it. Thank you. We got a couple questions behind you.
Yeah, we've been in the hospital quite a few times, and our primary use of the lounge is to wait and read a book, and so waiting is our primary use, and comfort in that room is the most important. Appearance and comfort of the chairs.
I'm gonna just throw a wild question out there because I'm just curious, because I have an opinion myself, but I won't share it. When you're in the quiet or in the lounges and you're using it for reading or just kind of waiting, do you find the televisions, or how do you view the television? Maybe I should frame it that way.
I really care less about the television. I can care less about all the other things you have on the list except for waiting.
Okay, thank you.
I love the television when I waited for other people. I actually love it, and especially to watch the news and some other things. To me, it lets you pass the time of day and it isn't boring.
What if you don't get to pick the channel? All right, thanks. We got a question behind you. Yes.
Well, one of the things I've noticed in these rooms is there are a lot of times when people are sleeping or napping. And the one thing that always bothers me about it is that you've got somebody's blanket laying on the sofa or whatever it is, and somebody's pillow has been used. I think this is a hospital. Things should be more sanitary. So maybe there would be a place to keep clean clean pillowcases or clean blankets so that you felt like you didn't have to use that very room anymore.
That's a great point, and when I took the photos and I saw the blankets laying there, my first thought was, they need to go somewhere, because the same person will probably not come back and want to sleep in the exact same chair, perhaps. One of the challenges that I see, and I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, I'm just thinking of management of linens, and how to have a cabinet that's accessible to everyone, yet you're certain that it's all sanitary and someone hasn't inadvertently put something back in that clean linen storage that's been used. Can anybody share with me, do you guys know how people obtain the linens and pillows today? Do you ask nursing staff on the floor?
Sometimes
Yes, yes, nursing.
Okay. And is that usually something that's offered, or you just kind of have to go above and beyond and go and seek it out?
You express the need for it, and then because I come at this from a different perspective. I was in the business office at St. Mary's for 20 years and stuff, and I also had surgery with my husband in the waiting areas and stuff. So it's twofold. I see how the patients wander around looking for something to do because they're tired of the waiting room, but yet my husband wasn't going to leave the hospital until I was out of intensive care. But
Right.
you just express a need, and the nurses took care of it and stuff. And they even were proactive and said, were you going to stay the night? You know, and so they would set him up, and it was 2 nights. They set him up with everything he needed, you know, in the area, which was very much appreciated. And as far as, I guess, my perspective on the waiting area is what I would like to see is, so many times a doctor has to come out and speak to the family, and it's with everybody else. And not every floor has a place that you can just slip into and stuff. I mean, this was, when my father was here, we were making life and death decisions in the 12 hours he was in the hospital, and eventually passed away. But they had to come to the waiting area because we were all there, and they didn't, and it was the timeliness of it. So I don't know, and I know space is a premium, so to make some kind of a little room or something where you could go, I don't know if that's even possible.
Well, and that's a great point, and you know, everything is an iterative process, right? So we take baby steps and achieve what you can at the time and strive for your ideal scenario. So maybe that's a point for future designs that we talk about. Are there spaces that can be private for consultation so that doctors aren't sharing news or trying to have families make very difficult decisions in front of other family members? You had your hand up a long time ago.
Well, I was just gonna say, you know, if you've ever been at the subway, patient lounge or the sitting lounge, or whatever you call it, it's kind of like a file lounge, the left side out there.
Oh, in Gonda?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
You know, I mean, because then they have a corner where there's a shelf that has the buckets, and then right underneath that, there's a bin for the users.
Mhm.
So it's very simple, if you want to go to the bin, you can fix it, and then 97 people, they will just leave it, sit it out, and then they want to see where people get them out, and they can see where they're going. Otherwise, sometimes when you have a situation where it's like, well, you know, that balance of what we're doing, that's why people do it.
That's true. That's a great point. Yes, sir.
Do you have any data that would reflect what these various topics you have, what the usage is, how many people use it for waiting, how many use it for this, and how many use it for that?
We
Because
don't,
you're trying to provide everything at once,
we are.
which isn't real.
And you know, we don't have data on it, and I quite honestly, in order to even accumulate the data, would be someone sitting at a waiting room, watching or making rounds and counting, which perhaps could be done. I don't know in reality how accurate it would end up being, if it would be a true depiction of what happens all the time. I also feel, and this is just me personally, because I was out there and took some pictures of the rooms, and so I only took pictures of rooms that were vacant. When you actually kind of get the look of what are you doing here, you know, because people, that's quite honestly, for many people, that's like the worst week of your life. You're dealing with so much, and then to have people perhaps taking data on you, I would almost be a little concerned about the perception of that.
Excuse me, I'm not saying you do it, it's
Yeah.
just saying that there's nothing, what is wrong with sending this to a patient following a clinical experience?
That's a great-
Fill it out, send it back, or send it in by email.
That's a great suggestion,
That's
so,
totally met my point, I was not trying to be insensitive.
yeah.
But I don't know how you can continue with limited space, trying to enhance it to cover all the topics. Why not try and find out, first of all, what are the 3, 4 that are most frequently used?
That's a great point, and I apologize for if I made you sound insensitive. I really didn't intend to do that, no. Sometimes I get a little too, the engineering side of me hits too much, and I'm like, how are we gonna accomplish that? So it's a great suggestion, and I think what would actually be even better about that is, I think every area has different needs. I mean, an ICU, I think, definitely has different needs from a medical unit. So if you could identify where physically on the hospital campus that patient's family is surveying for, I think we could learn a lot. It's a great suggestion. Yes?
Just one quick question, is something like this gonna be bounced off the nursing staff and stuff? Are they going to have an input on this also? Because, like I said, we asked for blankets and things and they enable that, so I think in that, they have a real good, they're there all the time and see how it's being used.
Mhm.
And when I was in the hospital and would have to go up and see patients and stuff, the one thing that I don't think that we should put in a waiting area is make it so buffet eligible, because honestly, I saw many, many, many times, I mean, it's one thing to go get something to eat and sit up on the floor and stuff, but there were many times that a full-fledged buffet was set up. I mean, and I can only imagine the trash and these small garbage cans and stuff, and I just don't think that doesn't need to be there. First of all, the smells, I mean, we couldn't even pop popcorn in our area, so those kinds of things need to be taken into consideration. I don't think that the waiting room, I think it should be a quiet place where you could visit and everything, and the TV is fine too, but this setting up these huge buffets, I would really like to see us stay away from making it easier for people to do that.
Thank you. And, the question about nursing input, I'm pretty early on in the process, and so I, in my own mind, am trying to figure out how to tackle this.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, in the next 5 years, it's gonna go beyond hospital family
Sure.
lounges to waiting rooms. And I think that because every nursing unit is different, I think that there has to be some input provided by each of those areas, particularly when we prioritize the rooms where we're really gonna upgrade and give the whole room a facelift. If we're really proposing to change something, I think it's critical because they'll A, better understand what the needs of those particular patient families are, and B, some of the amenities that are provided actually do cause some work for staff. Staff actually will have to come and do stuff. I mean, think about coffee. If we offer a coffee pot, somebody has to stock the filters in the coffee and make sure that it's getting cleaned. So we need to make sure that we have buy-in from the people in the area as well, so that whatever gets implemented is easily maintained or is maintained.
We're gonna have to wrap it up so
Okay.
Dr. Leffen can present. So I'm gonna encourage all of you to fill these out and just drop them off, maybe up here or at the end, and make sure before you leave that you sign the attendance sheet so we can catch everyone, and I'll see that up here.